Welcome to Spotlight. I'm Rian Keating. Today we're delighted to have the opportunity to interview the star of the MGM-UA release Red Dawn. It's a privilege to welcome Charlie Sheen. Charlie, welcome.
Thank you.
Most of the press releases for Red Dawn, which deals with aliens or Soviets coming in and overtaking U.S. territory, term it as a dark fantasy and film of supposition.
Well, yeah, the film is it's definitely a science fiction fantasy, and like you said, it deals with an Allied invasion of Soviet troops, Cubans, Nicaraguans, and the total occupation of the United States. Yeah, and it's definitely a fantasy along those lines as far as it being a conventional war, because it's not very realistic that they would invade conventionally. It'd be more of a first strike nuclear situation.
When you first read the screenplay, what was your impression of it?
Well, I had first heard about it through a good friend of mine, and when I had finally got a chance to read it, I was completely excited. I told myself at that point that I had to become a part of this project, not only because of the content, but because of the character that I felt right for. And just working with John Milius, I thought would have been a thrill. He wrote Apocalypse Now, and so I had some idea as to his background. But my initial reaction was that this was going to be one of the big films in 1984.
John Milius is a director who seems to be challenged by physical difficulties in terms of production. As you said, he's known for Apocalypse Now and Conan the Barbarian. How did you find the physical aspects of the production schedule?
Very difficult. We would shoot 6 days a week, 16 hours a day for 13 weeks, and that tends to age one considerably, a few wrinkles. But as far as the weather conditions, it was definitely hell. Working nights anywhere from 40 to 50 degrees below zero. And you think back and you still feel the pain occasionally. It's just amazing.
You had shot part of this in New Mexico?
All of it. Entirely on location, yeah. Las Vegas, New Mexico.
He had said that he had chosen children as central characters in the film because it deals with war, and generally children are the victims. It would have more poignancy.
Yeah, definitely, and it brings more sympathy to the characters. And it's like if you look at Vietnam clips, pictures, you see that they're all these baby faces, children, as are in the film, because it's not the political leaders, the nuclear screwheads that are fighting the wars. They're placing people in the wars, and it is the kids. And I think in this story being told by children through their eyes, it's a great deal more compassionate, and it's a great deal more stunning when you feel that effect of this could be our own children, you know.
What do you feel the statement Mr. Milius is trying to make through Red Dawn?
I don't see. That's the problem I'm running into as far as people picking apart this film as far as the political aspects, the controversy of it, they're calling it political propaganda. The statement that I get personally is that this film depicts in a realistic way the fighting the spirit that America has upheld for 200 years and will continue to uphold as displayed in the picture. And I think not only does it display a great deal of American patriotism, but it shows just the ultimate horror of war. I don't think this film's a warning. I think it's an eye-opener. This film should say to people, look, this is a contemporary issue that's highly conceivable. Let's stay on our toes.
Do you feel that, well, there's the old adage that old men start wars and young men finish them. When you look at the real prominent wars of the 20th century, you have the Second World War, which seemed to be something that everybody believed in, whereas the Vietnam War was a war that there was a lot of dissension about.
Yeah.
Do you feel that, certainly with our generation, that there is patriotism?
I think there's a great deal of patriotism, especially this year, 1984. You've got elections, Olympics, the overtones of George Orwell, and it's an interesting year for a film like this to come out, whereas very political issues taking place. And I think at this time, that's why it's being considered such a controversial film, along those lines, you know. But
as you had said, the physical aspects of the production were very difficult. How did you prepare for the guerrilla tactics and whatnot?
Well, we had a fellow named John Early, who was a former Green Beret mercenary soldier who, along with a few assistants of his, trained us. We had a 1-week period set out where we learned Russian weaponry, overall ballistics, tactical maneuvering, camouflage, an entire realm of knowledge that centered on this type of warfare we'd be involved in. We would do manhunts, various strategic setups, and work along those lines, trying to get ourselves in that situation.
How were you able to develop a sense of camaraderie? Did you have one that you looked to or forward towards as leadership? Or
Well, Patrick Swayze, as you know in the film, plays Jet, who is our leader because he's the oldest. He accepted the leadership role, and that was basically how it was on and off the set, because we all stayed in the hotel. We would get together every night, talk about tomorrow's work. There was that camaraderie since day one, and because we knew that if we didn't have that unity, that teamwork, that it wouldn't show in the film, and the only way to bring it off in the film would be to have it off screen, because if it didn't work, we wouldn't have survived. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you had also, while you were performing your guerrilla operation, you were in the midst of the National Guard.
Yeah, that's been brought up a couple times now. We were doing a manhunt. We've been staked out for a few hours. John Early and his assistant were the enemy, and we were staked out to capture or eliminate them. And there was a New Mexican National Guardsmen in the area that were doing their own maneuvers, and I don't know if you talked to Patrick about this, but him and myself were in an area where we could see from me to you National Guardsmen walking around us who had no idea we were there. I personally could have killed 6 or 8, and it would have been complete warfare. But as far as actually applying these camouflage and these maneuvering techniques, we got a chance to actually get a chance to try it in a pressure situation.
Did you find it hard after the filming was completed to disconnect from it? How did this experience change your perception of war?
Well, yeah, it's interesting. It definitely gave me alternate viewpoints. I shouldn't say that I'm now biased against the Soviet people by any means. But, I mean, they do have their place. But as far as having a whole different view of war, I feel like I've been through one, and I feel as though I understand the elements of warfare to a much greater extent than when I entered the film, which is natural, having lived that character, that whole experience.
Has it changed your outlook on humanity? Would you consider yourself more of a pacifist, or?
In certain areas, but I'm actually, as sick as it may sound, a little more gung-ho following the film, you know what I'm saying? As far as actually being in that militaristic, pressured situation, and having to see myself as a guerrilla, as a partisan, and react to the elements set forth.
One thing Jennifer Grey had said in an interview, she was very pleased because this film gave an opportunity for women and men to interact together. The roles were not so clearly defined, because when you're fighting, you lose your individuality.
True, and as far as losing the individuality, that's true, because we had to fight as a team. A quarterback doesn't win games. He can't do it without his offensive line, right? And I think what she was stressing is that it was like, one for all for one, that type of thing. And that's definitely true. I agree with her entirely.
You're Martin Sheen's son, as most people would know by now.
Right.
How did you get interested in acting? Do you think it's something that was in your blood?
Well, yeah, as far as genetic inheritance, I strongly believe in that. But also as far as being involved in his locations, his sets, and being a Super 8 filmmaker since age 5, I always had an instinct, an inclination to pursue some form of creative outlet. And that's what's so special about acting, is it offers you that outlet. It's a conduit to explore those areas, whereas without that, in exploring them, you would wind up in jail or prison or both.
Your brother Emilio Estevez is also an actor.
Yeah, and a very good one.
Your father had said in an interview at the time, where he was becoming rather well known, that he encouraged him not to take the Sheen name. Yeah,
and I think Emilio made the right choice, because Emilio Estevez is more of a balanced name. and because it left it wide open for me to use, right? But in using Sheen, I feel Charlie Sheen is a better ring. It's more balanced. Charlie Estevez, and I figured also because of the type of films I'd be involved in, it's better at this point to be associated with as Martin Sheen's son than Emilio Estevez's brother. But now I'm reaping the comparison of both, so I guess I lose either way, you know.
Well, I'm sure there's double pressure that way too.
Yeah, in a sense, yeah.
When you were growing up, and you must have been known certainly to your peers as Martin Sheen's son, did you find that a problem?
Not too much, because I used Estevez throughout high school and for normal life, and I guess people would see him on TV, and I'd say, yeah, did you see my pop on TV last night? Then they'd connect the association, they'd see him pick him up after baseball practice or something. But it wasn't a hindrance at all during school, at least, because there was no professional association, you know. Now people see us pursuing a career and being professional peers as well as father-son, and there's that interest, there's that intrigue as far as, well, what's the third Sheen son going to be like, you know. But it has its advantages as well as its disadvantages.
At what point did you decide that acting was what you would like to do as a profession? Was there a turning point?
Well, yeah, I had thought about playing baseball. I had considered accepting a scholarship offer and going off to pursue an athletic career. But then I realized that it wasn't something that I really wanted, you know. And then after high school, I started auditioning and then got a couple parts, and then the ball got rolling, and here we sit a year later, and it's been a very successful year. And I hope to keep the pace going at this point.
One thing that your father had said, he was trying to discourage Emilio initially because he felt that an education would be more beneficial than just having...
my career as far as school went, I think my parents knew from day one that I wasn't going to be an educational success as far as higher levels of education, and I told them, listen, you know, cut me some slack, give me a chance, let me see what I can do for myself, and I guess they've got no complaints now when I'm working, you know, because if I was just sitting around the house smoking dope and swimming, you know, then they'd have their complaints, but I've gotten...
feel, well, I know your father had done Apocalypse Now for John Milius, and during it he had had a heart attack.
Right. Well, actually, I mean, Coppola directed that, but Milius wrote it. You know that, right? Yeah.
Right. He had said that had changed his outlook on life. How did it change your relationship with him? Because he was rather young at the time.
Well, that's interesting because I spent 8 months in the Philippines myself during that whole shoot. And I had spent 6 months until he got sick, and I came back. And I saw... when I got back, an entirely different man. It was really amazing because he's talked to me about that, and he's described how he was on the threshold of death, that fine line between life and death, where he could in fact have stepped over into the other side. You know, the great white light that everybody talks about. You know, he said he was there, and he was a great deal more compassionate after that. And I guess when you're that close, the value of it at least becomes a great deal more intensified when you realize that, whoa, I could check out any time, you know.
How did it change your perception of him? Did it make you more appreciative, or?
Well, yeah, in certain areas it did, because he said the main reason he stayed with that option was because of his family, what he had to do, his goals in life. His journey wasn't completed, and so I was thankful, you know.
One thing he had said in an interview is that when he builds a character, he draws on people that he knows. Do you find that's how you build a character as well? How do you approach, well, say Matt, for example?
Well, Matt was interesting because I got to draw a lot out of myself, because I saw, as soon as I read the script, a lot of myself in Matt, more so than any other character in the piece. And so it's like John told us. He said, you know, we had our initial meeting, and he said, guys, when I hired you, I saw a little bit, you know, that character in each one of you. He said, so 50% of the job is already done. I just get out there and do it as actors, you know. And so with that in mind, I thought about it, and I said, he's right. And I have to agree with him, and I went out and did the job, basically. Yeah.
Do you find it harder acting in film as opposed to theater?
I as they say, emblazoned in celluloid for all eternity, you know. Whereas theater, it is very self-satisfying, as is acting, but it's just a one-time occurrence and it's gone, you know. I mean, not spiritually, not emotionally, but physically, you know. Mm-hmm. And the theater I have done was a terrific experience, but I'm enjoying film a great deal more. I'd like to step back into theater, however, and give it another shot.
Well, it seems you've done certainly a lot of diverse roles, certainly in high school, from Antigone to Our Town.
Right, that was, high school, kind of a small drama department, no big deal. But then when I stepped out into film, I got a chance to look at that, the different aspects and have the comparison of both, you know.
Do you feel that as a performer today you have to be a triple threat in being able to sing and act?
Well, I don't know so much about singing or even playing a musical instrument. I look at myself as becoming a triple threat through production, directing, cinematography, producing, because that's what I've done with all my films. I've always written the screenplays, cast them, produced them, you know, and starred in them. And so now when I'm focusing all my energy solely on acting, it's interesting to think, well, wait a minute, there's other people that are running the cameras that are telling me what to do. I want to do those other jobs, having done them on a different level. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Do you find that directors in film give you more creative freedom as opposed to theater, or because of the high budgets that's not necessarily the case?
With some productions, yes, you have a chance to express yourself more creatively in film, but not so much as opposed to theater, as opposed to TV, though. Because TV, you've got, you know, tight schedule, tight money, tight production fees, etc. And usually it's a very, you know, you'll whip through 6-8 pages a day, whereas film, you've got, maybe you'll do one scene for an entire day to get that, you know, what the director wants from it, you know.
Mm-hmm. Do you find that pressure hard? Is there a moment where you might, say, lose creative flow?
During film, you mean? Yeah, it's definitely hard, and people say, movie stars, it's all sunglasses and autographs. Not true. It's the hardest job in the world, or at least one of them. And looking at it, because I think the best acting is when it looks the easiest, and looking at it, you say, well, what, I could do that. Mm-hmm. That's when it's the best work. Those are the greatest actors. But in those pressure situations, you've just got to sit back and say, well, you know, I've got the job. It's up to me now, and I know I wouldn't be here if I couldn't handle it. And you've got to go for it, because I figure if you don't go 110%, you might as well not go at all.
What do you look for in terms of a director?
Somebody who I can relate to, somebody who I feel can bring from me the creativity that I know I'm capable of, who can take you could say a raw talent and mold it, so to say. Somebody who can look for certain characteristics and bring out those strongest character elements to provide for your character.
Mm-hmm. I know one thing Laurence Olivier had said in an interview, all acting is saying the lines. Do you feel that so, or do you feel that an applied method such as Stanislavski would...
I don't know. See, I'm not too familiar with all the methods that are available today, but I know for me at least, and when I watch a performance, that if I don't believe what I'm saying, I know somebody else isn't going to believe it. And I can see somebody on the screen and tell if they believe what they're doing and what they're saying, and you can tell within 5 seconds. You know?
Mm-hmm. I'm sure Red Dawn is certainly an auspicious debut, and it should open a lot of doors for you. What's next?
Well, like I said, I got the TV movie of the week coming out, Silence of the Heart. Worked with my best friend Chad Lowe in that, and terrific cast, Mary Hartley.
Rian Keating, and you've been watching Spotlight. Our guest today has been Charlie Sheen, who is featured in... Have a good week.
Thank you.